Hi, everybody. It's Ron again for some more looking at today's headlines, comments, and commentary when available, which means if I know anything about it. And if I do, I'll tell you, and if I don't, I'll tell you as well. So let's look at it again. We have for so long we had that situation in Ukraine, which was at the top of all the news, all the different news sources, all the different news aggregators. This thing in Israel has essentially eliminated all that, and all that breathless news that we heard about for so long in Ukraine. I guess it's not as important to report anymore. But anyway, this is another. The situation in Israel is another thing that is changing the world equation. So this article talks about Russia and China hoping to turn the tables on the U.S. Russia found itself on the outs with the U.S. with its gambit to invade Ukraine. All of that is about securing Russian access to the Crimea region, the Black Sea, their warm water port area. They see it as an existential crisis. They need to make sure that they take over those countries so they have access to those waterways in perpetuity. And then we have in China, we have in the past 10 years or so, power being consolidated under one person, where previously it was spread out a little bit. We have the demographic crisis that's coming there, and we have non-performing loans. We have real estate crisis, and which, for whatever reason, has been causing China to have some sable rattling, and China is finding itself cast as more and more as the prime enemy or adversary of the United States. So all of these things have come together to cause, perhaps a new poles of power to develop. We see North Korea sending arms to Russia to help them fight in the Ukraine, and we see Russia and China, growing together to create a sort of a new axis to because they've got for good or for better or for worse, they have their own things that they're trying to do, and that is something that is going to be opposed by the U.S. So the years or the couple decades of relatively peaceful coexistence has suddenly turned, as it always has, because historically both of those countries have Russia and China have not been close allies of the United States. They have their own things that pull them in different directions. So it's geopolitics for you. So what else do we have here? Saudi Arabia, Houthi missile headed towards Israel. These are the rebels in Yemen. I think I did look at this article before, and that's funny. I don't think Yemen is even mentioned here, but this is, I guess it was somewhat covered in the international press, but, there's a huge, perhaps almost genocidal war that was waged in Yemen as Saudi Arabia went in to try to dislodge these Iranian-backed rebels that were setting up this new government right on its doorstep, and it's been a very chaotic situation down there in Yemen ever since. And apparently, in support of the attacks in Gaza, the Houthi rebels down there in Yemen tried to send missiles up to hit Israel. Again, this might be another thing that adds to the idea that Iran is pulling the strings of all of these events, or at least cheerleading them on, since Iran is heavily backing the Houthis. What else do we have? There we have Hamas rocket strike Tel Aviv. Syria joins in. This is part of the fear that there could be a wider war. This is up in the Golan Heights. A couple little stray rockets hit the Golan Heights from Syria. It seems so small. Perhaps it's just a lone wolf people shooting over the border. Who knows? We'll see. Pentagon sending more Iron Dome. You see, this is in red. It wasn't because I I clicked on that. I think this is included in the way it is here on Drudge because it's suggesting. You see a lot of people and it's sort of right-leaning website like Drudge are a little more isolationist these days, even though they're Republicans. They've heard for 20 years the Democrat side that started during George W. Bush era that said wars are bad, we shouldn't be in wars because some innocent people might get killed. So here we are getting more involved in war. And this is supposed to suggest that, again, our money and manpower and prestige is being sent to another new a war. And of course, the Iron Dome. This is these super sophisticated missile batteries that shoot down the missiles that are constantly fired into Israel from all different sides. And Israel's supposed to take it, I guess. What's this? Iranian-backed militias mount new waves of attacks as U.S. supports Israel. Again, this is more warning of a wider war finally that's breaking out. All of this has to, all the things that have happened, Russia invading Ukraine and this situation, the sable rattling that's happened from China against Taiwan, it certainly suggests that there is an idea in the world, in other countries, America's adversaries, rightly or wrongly, that America is weakened, or that it lacks the appetite for further involvement in big wars, and that's a reasonable thing, I think, for another country to assume, considering the experience that America has had in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the way that America quickly withdrew from Afghanistan the way it did, and that was done by the left side, the Biden side, and on the right side we have the Republicans becoming quite almost isolationist again and not wanting to be involved. So maybe a lot of countries say, hey, this is a good time to strike and make our move. Who knows what the next election will hold, with Trump in such a precarious position and Biden in such a holding on to life, and who knows who might succeed him and how competent they might be. Okay, here's more of Trump and all of his legal drama. I mean, the one thing, whether you like Trump or you hate him, I think you have to accept that there were a lot of unforced errors. It's a sports metaphor. It's some kind of mistake you make in your play, and you do it to yourself. A lot of this is not being careful enough in the moves. Trump not being careful enough in the moves he's made. Kind of anti-Semitism. I think we mentioned that yesterday. Something about abortion doesn't impact me really anymore or ever. Let's see. Oldest woman in the world has no health problems at 116. I always wonder if they have proof that these people are that old, or, sometimes they're from some of these Eastern European countries where they just claim that they're real old and no one really knows. But it's pretty old. It's pretty good. It's nice to be this old, but the real breakthrough is if you could be that old and not, be decrepit, or not, when you get that old, usually you become blind, your eyes wear out, and some of your organs wear out. So it's not just getting to be that old, it's being able to have the quality of life. 42 states sue Facebook over addiction. I read this. If you read this about little kids addicted to Facebook, are there kids on Facebook? If you're on Facebook, I'm sure it's like your old parents or your grandparents or their elderly friend or all the retirees. That's who's on Facebook. It's just And Facebook is all this marketplace and ads, and how could that ever appeal to kids? And I don't think they really say here exactly what it is that the kids are doing. I mean, if they were saying something about this, like with a TikTok, or maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, you would have said it about Instagram, maybe, or there's some other social media sites. Yeah, but Facebook, it's a really funny thing. It's a kids. Oh, wait, they do mention Facebook here. I don't know. Supremes could change internet forever. Okay, well, that's not a clickbaity title, is it? It's got me to click on it. Yeah, onslaught of misinformation spread by troll and bot accounts. Yeah, well, I don't know. The feeling I get is that, especially over the time of COVID, the kind of censoring of people's opinions, not allowing people to say the words of certain words that were relating to the situation in the world with the pandemic, by censoring that, by the, it's one thing you can put the little notice on here that says it might be contain misinformation, but I think when you completely censor things or shadow ban them or in those ways, it just causes people to become conspiratorial, as they have, and start to believe all kinds of crazy baloney. It's probably better to have more free speech than to say, we need to protect people from hearing the wrong things, and that causes people to believe the wrong things. I think that if you censor things, it's it may cause the problem you're trying to prevent. Millionaire baby, one of the world's youngest CEOs. Yeah, she launched her first business at 1. It's all she could talk about. Her first words. Let's get that IPO going. What else do we have here? Violence in hospital out of control. I don't know. Rising harassment in hospitals. I mean, you always wonder whether these things are a real brand new trend, or does the media suddenly report on them and it might cause a little spike in these incidents that are already there? It's hard to say. I don't know. They're fun to read, and that's why they're printed, I think. So here we saw this yesterday. I don't know. This isn't something that's really news. It's just interesting. Court docs, off-duty pilot who tried to shut off plane engines mid-flight took psychedelic mushrooms. It is one of those, I've never heard of that happening before, but it's one of those things, at least me as a worrywart, I'm just always considering all the things that could possibly go wrong when I'm on a plane. And I'm surprised that it doesn't, considering how many planes flying. Woman mauled by pet Rottweiler after feeding it THC gummy. Don't do dumb things, I guess. Looking for a date in Taiwan, government here to help. I'm sure this is about, in the more and more affluent societies, you have lower and lower birth rates for various reasons, such as the expense of raising a child. And so you have these demographic collapses where not enough people are being born to pay the taxes and to do the work anymore. Scientists reconstruct the face of 12-million-year-old great ape. It's not much more than this in it. I actually looked up the species and everything, but how wonderful, how amazing that to look back and we can make something out of this. And how many millions of other things that we'll never know about that once lived back then, and all the strange things that must have happened in history that are forever lost now. I don't know. I just find those finding different species or different animals in the past or the present. I just fascinating. Let's see. Something about a movie. Israel Hamas dividing Hollywood. Nearly 1 in 4 adults feel lonely. Okay. Call the ambulance. Poor well-being linked to chaotic conditions. That's new chronic. No. Poor well-being linked to formation of new chronic conditions. I don't know. I'm very cynical. I think especially in the States, you got all these people with fibromyalgia and all this kind of stuff that it's very difficult to quantify sometimes if you really have it and they're on disability. So I don't know. I might think different if it happens to me someday, but I always feel a little skeptical about people who they can't work anymore, but they could sit home and play video games all day while on disability. I know that's kind of mean, but we'll see. Maybe I'm cursed for that. World on the verge of space war as Russian satellites show aggression. This is a very drudge-like headline. Here we have a, I don't know, Daily Star. It's a very tabloidy kind of paper. Certainly that's going to happen someday. It would just be, it doesn't have to be space lasers or anything. It's just, this is why you have a lot of extra satellites up there, and you move or maneuver one satellite to get in the way or disrupt another satellite, or the satellite can open a little door and let out some metal chips or something that at those speeds will collide with another satellite. It's one of these days that's going to happen. The rumors here are, there's all kinds of rumors of Putin body double, as they've had all the time. Putin having a cardiac arrest. Putin sick. Now, here's the thing. Every time the United States has an enemy, an adversary, that's a person, we immediately have to conceptualize that person as decrepit, dead, and dying. Everybody, Ayatollah Khomeini in the past, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden was the first thing you hear about him. Oh, he's got kidney disease. Oh, bin Laden, he's got kidney disease. He's almost dying. We always have to say that the people who are our enemies are deathly ill and may die, even though they always deny it. So it doesn't mean they're not actually ill, but it is an interesting feature of American culture. We feel that our enemies are decaying. This year you hear about all the guys in North Korea over the years about how sick they are and how fat they are and blah, blah, blah. So watch for that. You'll see that all the time. More bed bugs. That's really an awful thing if you ever have that. I've had it before. More craziness in Mexico. I'm not sure if my take on this is correct, but my feeling is that what's happened in Mexico with all the chaos is Mexico has tried to reform their police system. They're trying to crack down on this sort of thing. And they're having a situation in the last maybe 10 or 15 years with all this crazy killing that was like the United States in the 1920s, where law enforcement was trying to crack down on the lawlessness and the mafia. So I think that's what they're going through now. So as opposed to a country that's going to continue to spin out of control, perhaps this is a symptom of the reforms that they've tried to make in their system, pushing back against the ingrained powers, the criminal powers that are there. Stuff about migration. New York has always been a city of migrants. Maybe we can get into that controversial thing in the future when there's some better articles about it. common fungus linked to Alzheimer's. A lot of things are. Again, this is I won't even go to the article. This is a medical article from the mainstream media. And most of the time it's based on a very small study, and it's always very clickbaity. So some of these headlines, it's really being dominated by Israel for sure. I'm sure that brings in the views. So before we go, I'll just mention my book. This is a novel about life in Bangkok from the perspective of young people, young Americans, and other foreigners who've come here to live and work, and also the local Thais, and how they see their country, their world, their city changing, and seeing both the modern, the future, and the exotic, and new trends that sweep away life in the past in some ways and then enforce it in other ways. It's on Amazon. If you look at tobangkok.com, there are links to Amazon. It's on Kindle. It'd be great if you take a look at it, and if you like it, let me know. So until tomorrow, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.